Well, the debate will probably continue as the Prime Minister now turns his attention to next week's First Ministers' meeting. And to talk about this, we're now joined by Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, Tonda MacCharles, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, and Joël-Denis Bellavance, Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Nice to see you guys again. So listen, as I said, the week began busily with a lot of pomp and circumstance with the visit of the King. It now turns into, I guess, the nitty-gritty of things as the Prime Minister sits down with the country's premiers. Bob, start us out here. How important will this meeting of the premiers be for Mark Carney to make sure what he's trying to pursue is either a success or a failure?
Well, look, he has a very ambitious agenda, and to get this agenda going, he's going to need a lot of cooperation from the provincial premiers and territorial leaders. And we always know, because we're all old hands at federal provincial affairs, that that is often a very difficult group of people to be able to deal with. The most important thing that he's going to be able to talk to them right away with saying, we're going to bring down the federal barriers to interprovincial trade, which is really insignificant, because the real issue has to do with the provinces, whether they will be able to do that. They're the ones that are going to make the real difference, and the jury is out on that happening. And then the most important thing from Mr. Carney's perspective is trying to get buy-in from the provincial premiers on what kind of nation-building projects that they can more or less agree to so that we can get them started. And he has already, we know that very quickly after this there's going to be legislation passed that's going to try to get these projects off the ground within a 2-year approval process, which is very, that's a really fast approval process, because lately we're looking at 10 years or in that neighborhood. And so it's a very significant thing. It can make a big difference if we can get our resources, natural gas, our oil, our critical minerals out of the ground and to global markets. It could make a big difference to jobs in this country, to our GDP, and to our productivity. So, but look, it's not going to be easy, because you're going to have environmental groups and some Indigenous groups going to the courts. You're going to have the Bloc Québécois and the NDP opposing some of this stuff. Yeah. So this will be the test of how transformative leader Mark Carney can be.
Yeah, transformative, and as you say, he has all these players. And Bob touched upon it a bit, Tonda, in terms of the potential obstacles here. Not only with the premiers, but when you look at the individual provinces, they have tried to do their own forms of fast tracking, and they have encountered their own opposition and obstacles. When the Prime Minister says he wants to do this quickly, he wants to accomplish these projects, how difficult is that actually going to be for him?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, a lot of people over the past number of months, in the face of the Trump threat, have paid lip service to the importance of breaking down barriers, reducing red tape and regulation, and allowing the country to develop its economy. But I see, there be dragons in some respect for the Prime Minister, in the sense of there are Indigenous groups that expect more than just this government to be firmly guided by the principle of consulting with them and working with them. Some of them feel that, their say is important. It amounts to a veto. Does it or doesn't it? I don't think it does. And so there's not just that. I mean, Francois Legault has already sort of also weighed in. He wants the federal government to contribute funding to a big hydroelectric development that he signed on to with Newfoundland up in Labrador. But that's billions and billions and billions of dollars. And Carney has made clear that he's out to reduce the red tape, but he's not out to kick in billions and billions and billions of dollars to everybody's pet project. So, look, I think that the devil is in the details this week. Carney has, on Friday, told the mayors that he's interested in high-speed rail, he's interested in port infrastructure, linking municipalities to ports. Is he interested in electrical corridors, or is he interested in pipelines? Is he interested in oil pipelines or gas pipelines? Have the private sector, have private companies put forward ideas as well, and will they kick in the dollars necessary? I think really a lot is riding on the specifics we hear this week out of Saskatoon.
Yeah, so without a doubt, an important meeting. But Tonda raises Joël-Denis François Legault, the Quebec Premier. But we also heard from Yves-François Blanchet, who has already said that the Bloc Québécois will oppose any project that adds to like global emissions. Talk to us about the kind of opposition, not just politically with the Bloc Québécois, but also within Quebec. Because Quebec really supported the Liberals. It is a big reason why Mark Carney was able to save the party and not have them relegated to the opposition benches. How is this going to fly in Quebec, the type of opposition that Mark Carney is going to have to navigate there?
I think it is diminishing the kind of opposition we saw in the past in Quebec towards pipeline, the construction of pipelines. The context of the relationship between Canada and the United States changed the dialogue in Quebec. Yes, the Bloc Québécois will remain opposed to it because it's fundamentally a party that wants to separate from Canada, but also oppose pipelines. So that's not a new thing that they're saying. Well, François Legault is more open-minded to pipelines, namely pipelines for natural gas. And for Mr. Carney, I think he's got a game plan, but he needs supports from other players to make it happen. And I think for it to happen, he's got big ambitions, but he will have to start with small steps. He's talking about a national energy corridor, for example. The small steps will be to build a national corridor between Alberta and the Port of Churchill, for example. And Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, may be a key player in that big scheme of things. Why? He's a Premier in Manitoba, NDP, but also from Aboriginal communities. And so he's got some credibility, political capital that he wants to spend. And he's talking about, providing the financial support to make sure that the Port of Churchill, for example, in Manitoba is developed and is linked to a national energy corridor that could eventually link to the Ring of Fire in Ontario. So you've got some pieces going together, start small, but expand afterwards. Because if you go too big, you may fail, and that's one of the key challenges for Mr. Carney, because he's been raising expectations about delivering a lot in a short time. That, we may face some roadblocks towards.
Yeah, face some roadblocks. But, as we kind of look to these potential obstacles that the Prime Minister will encounter, he's also experiencing challenges here in Ottawa within his own caucus, within his own office, because from all reports that this is a caucus that still has some level of disunity in it. This is a Prime Minister that still is having a hard time finding a chief of staff, and what does that mean about internal staffing, and even reports of people getting out of meetings, I guess, in tears because they're being taken to task for not being prepared enough for their meetings with the Prime Minister. Bob, just how difficult a situation internally is it right now for the Prime Minister?
Well, in terms of the caucus, there are a good number of members of Parliament who are concerned about pipeline development and greenhouse gas emissions, so he's going to have to manage that. And in terms of his own office, well, we know from the way he ran the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada that he's a hard taskmaster. He expects people to show up, to be dressed properly, to know their briefs, and if they don't, they will hear about it. I don't have a problem with that, frankly. We've got a lot of big issues on the table that need to be dealt with, and the Prime Minister expects people to come to work and to be prepared and to work hard. And it's going to, a lot of people are not going to like that. We've all worked for bosses who have expected us to up our game, and this is what you're going to get with him.
Tonda, what are you hearing?
Well, I mean, all of us have heard these stories. All of us have heard, stories of people walking into meetings late and being berated for it, or not being ready and up on their files and being expected to deliver, data and evidence to bolster their arguments. But as Bob said, I mean, part and parcel of it is he's telling the country it has to move at a quick speed, but he's also telling the government and the caucus to move at a quick speed. And to your question about internal dissent, frankly, most of that caucus wouldn't be where it is today under a Justin Trudeau-led party, according to everything we thought was true 6 months ago. And so if they're in power again right now, albeit with a minority, it's in large measure because of Carney. So, I think he's got a lot of political capital to spend in the country, but also within his own caucus to stifle some of that dissent. I think that I don't think that the Canadian public will be too tolerant of whiners.
Joël-Denis?
And we're told that some cabinet ministers know already that they are on a leash in the sense that they need to produce results quickly as the Prime Minister expects them, and he will not hesitate to shuffle his cabinet within 8 months or 10 months or a year if some of them are not performing to his taste. So he's sending a signal from the top to the bottom, and that includes the bureaucracy, that he wants to move faster. No more, in French I say, no more tatouinage. That means you don't waste your time with him. Otherwise, you're going to be doing something else the next day. And that, I think, is a clear sign that he wants to do a lot of business, a lot of stuff, a lot of policies implemented, and he's a go-getter. So we'll see.
If he's able to deliver, say within 12 months, on a whole bunch of these deals he's promising, and manages to somehow negotiate some kind of settlement with the Trump administration, I can totally see him within 12 to 18 months going back to the electorate and seeking a majority mandate. And that's speculative. Of course it is. Stop that. But look, he's got to deliver too. He's set the bar really high, not just for them, but for himself. In the eyes of the voters, he has talked in hyperbolic language since he came on the scene. So, biggest transformation of the economy since World War II. Lead the G7, lead the world on transforming global alliances. If Trump won't lead, those are pretty tall standards. If that's his metric, and he's going to be graded by that, well, sure, bring it.
Yeah, and it's also been noted, I've heard it say, he wants to accomplish things quickly, but he has to accomplish things quickly in order to justify the mandate that he asked for Canadians to give him, as you say. So a lot to be watching, and of course we'll be covering Saskatoon very closely for the First Minister's meeting. But before we go, I want to acknowledge the fact that Robert Fife will be receiving an award. I know, you didn't know this was going. Why would I tell you? I want to surprise you.
I would have talked you out of it.
But this is the citation. At a time when journalism is under fire around the world, it is even more important that we honor great Canadian journalists who work tirelessly to uncover the truth, keep us informed, and inspire future generations of journalists to do the same. And this is from the Michener Awards Foundation. We are thrilled to recognize Mr. Fife for his extraordinary lifelong contributions to our profession. That award announced, I think, last week, and then you'll be receiving it next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I say bravo to that.
Yeah, so bravo to you. The ceremony is actually at Rideau Hall. The Governor General will be there. So Robert Fife will be future recipient of the Michener Award. So bravo. Robert Fife.
When I congratulated him, I told him he can retire now.
No. I'm not refiguring this panel. This panel stays. Okay. But Bob, Tonda, JD, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Have a great weekend.